Hello and welcome to Radio Waves. I'm your host, Kris Poliquin, and this is a production of Red Apples Media. We're broadcasting out of Real Country, 790 AM radio in Leesburg, Florida. And if you're watching us on television, you're doing so on Lake Sumter TV, Comcast Channel 13, Bright House 498, and CenturyLink Prism Channel 83. So I've invited Jamie Scher from the Florida Baptist Children's Home. He is the Emergency Shelter Supervisor, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about his facility, the the Florida Baptist Children's Home, and his shelter itself. So, Jamie, thank you for coming onto the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. I enjoy having guests to come and obviously talk about what they know and love. Mm-hmm. About their organizations and such, and this one kind of intrigued me. Mm-hmm. We had a colleague of mine went to go do a tour of your facility, came back, said a lot of good things, and we're like, maybe we should try to get someone to share the information about this facility to our local community. So with all of that said, Jamie, talk to me a little bit about what you do and why it's important.
So what we do, we run an emergency shelter. So we house about 12 children, children who have been removed from their families and their homes through DCF, and we are a home for them. Typically with a emergency shelter, it's usually a short-term stay. Mm-hmm. About 30, 60 days. But what we're seeing with children in care these days is that they're being moved so many times. We'll have kids that have been in 20 different placements within a year.
Really?
Yeah. And when you're moving, you got to think, you're leaving everything behind 20 different times a year. You're leaving schools, any kind of friends, any kind of stability that you have made. So the children's, the trauma that is just induced in these children are incredible, and their behaviors reflect their trauma. So what we're doing is we're keeping the children in our shelter until we find a more permanent goal. So either they get adopted, their parents finish their case plans and they go home, we find a relative or a permanent guardian, so the kids don't have to worry where they're going to wake up the next day.
And there's not just one scenario either, mm-hmm. right? I mean, there's a lot of reasons why you get these children, to come to your facility.
Correct.
What age groups are we talking about? And I don't want to say what do you see the most of, because again, the variation, it depends. It's very situational.
Yes. We only accept school-age children, so anywhere from 6 to 17. At the age of 18, they age out of the system or they go into extended foster care. But since we're a licensed shelter, we can't have an 18-year-old in the same room with a minor. So we don't have the housing and able to keep the children once they turn 18. Okay.
Now, can you talk to us a little bit about the Florida Baptist Children's Home itself, the organization, not the house? Because like we were talking about before we came on the air, I'd never really heard about these guys, and yet they've been around a really long time.
Yeah, Florida Baptist Children's Home has been around over 108 years, I believe.
That's just amazing.
I know. And
amazing.
It's changed with the times, the way they do group care and they take care of children, but they're still around. So Florida Baptist Children's Homes actually partnered with the Christian Care Center about 3 years ago. And that's where I got introduced to all the things that Florida Baptist Children's Homes does. They've also branched out, so it's Florida Baptist Children's Homes and One More Child. And they have a bunch of different services from Tallahassee to Miami and globally. They deal with single moms, over 18 single moms and their children can come and stay, and they have a program for them where they can work, they have childcare, they have classes, and we've had women with children, single moms, be able to go out and buy their own homes.
Really?
Yes. We have Child Hunger. They feed, children. They do backpack programs where they can go out and feed children who need meals. They have the foster care, which the shelter is part of. They have global outreach where they go to Uganda and different countries and they do orphan care over there. We have a safe house that deals with sex trafficking victims, and they have coaches and mentors that help them as well. So we have, just a bunch of different branches of One More Child that's just really affecting the way we treat children and care for children.
Now, is this a partnership per se?
Yes. So with the shelter is a partnership.
Okay, so that's a part. Okay, I understand.
Yes.
Okay.
So the shelter is a partnership with Christian Care Center. About 3 years ago, Christian Care Center was looking to better the care that we were giving the children. So what they did was they looked for who's the best in childcare, and Florida Baptist Children's Homes is known to be the best for childcare. So they partnered with the Christian Care Center and Florida Baptist Children's Homes, and that's how the shelter is now partnered with them. But Florida Baptist Children's Homes itself, that's the organization that's just going throughout all the state.
Gotcha. The umbrella.
Yes.
The big one. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I understand. Can you tell us a little bit about you and why you got involved with this in the first place?
Yes, thank you. So people always ask why I'm so passionate about what I do, and it all comes back to my own history. So how I got involved in the Christian Care Center, I'm originally from Long Island, New York. I came down here
I'm so sorry to hear
Nope,
that.
nope, I won't take that. I came down here at the age of 30, and I was a heroin addict for over 15 years. By the age of 31, I was arrested down here for stealing over $5,000 worth of jewelry from my mom. Within jail, she called and said, listen, after about a month, we can drop the charges, the state can drop the charges, where you just have to go into a rehab. And they found the Christian Care Center. And I've never heard of it. I was not a Christian. I've never been to church. But it was my get out of jail free card to go to this program.
Right.
So that's where my life was completely transformed, from a heroin addict to now somebody who's there taking care of children whose parents are on drugs, whose parents had neglected them, abused them. I'm on the other side of the spectrum there. So I graduated the program and became an ordained minister, got my bachelor's degree in biblical studies, and I started working as a direct care staff at the Christian Care Center. And that's when, a couple of years later, I've been there for about 7 years, and so 4 years after being a direct care staff, that's when Florida Baptist kind of came in and partnered with us, and that's where I became the supervisor.
You can relate to some of these poor kids coming
Yeah.
in that, or families.
Mm-hmm.
I keep focusing on the children.
Yes.
When I guess you actually do a lot more than just that.
Mm-hmm.
And I find I was really surprised. I had never heard of you guys before.
Yeah,
You know?
not many people have. I mean, I've been reaching out to local businesses and trying to get some donors and volunteers, and yeah, nobody knows we're really there. And yet lives are changing every single day. Miracles are happening over there where addicts are becoming, successful members of society, and children are learning life skills and are able to become parents of their own and break the
Yes.
cycle of foster care.
Now, where's this your house located?
The shelter is on 125 North 13th Street. So it's on off of Main Street in Leesburg, right by First Baptist Church of Leesburg. So we're also connected with First Baptist Church of Leesburg.
Okay, so how many children do you think you serve in just a typical year?
Well,
Because
again,
I know some don't get to stay long, some get
Yeah.
some stay longer. And
it's always different, and it used to be a lot more. We would see a lot more kids, but now it's getting to the point where these kids have nowhere else to go. So we take more of the kids where no other placements want them anymore. Just like I was thrown out pretty much to the curb and society thought that I was useless and just no good for anything because I was a drug addict, that's where these kids are coming from. These are kids with some severe behavioral issues that cannot make it in a traditional foster home, can't make it in a traditional group home. So when we're getting them, they're not leaving very soon. The state is delayed and it takes a long time. We've got kids that have been
Sure.
there for going on 5 years.
Is that right?
That is.
So it's not necessarily just a temporary overnight. We had to pull this child from a bad night at home, but he goes back tomorrow.
No.
There's some long term involved.
Yes. When I first started, it was more like 30, 60 days. But,
It's still a significant amount of time.
Yeah. Well, with the state, it's always going to be a significant amount of time with everything that's involved. Because these aren't community kids. These aren't kids where, parents just need some kind of help. These are kids that have been removed and they're under guardianship of the state. So they're going to do everything they can to reunify the family, but it is a process.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Yes.
I'm sure it is. Well, we need to take a quick break.
Okay.
But when we return, what I'd like to do is get into maybe some stories and more about your facility itself, the shelter. Is that all right?
Yes, awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
So we'll be back in a moment. Hello and welcome back to Radio Waves. Again, I'm your host, Kris Poliquin, and this is a production of Red Apples Media. So we're talking with Jamie Scher, who runs an emergency shelter here in Leesburg. Jamie, but before the break, we were talking kind of like an overall picture of it, the organization and what you do. But we ended on a couple of stories. Can you give the audience an idea of, let's say, a success story, just so that they know what kind of people could benefit from some, of your shelter and the programs?
Mm-hmm. So we had a child that came in. She was a 17-year-old girl, and she was a runaway. She was a habitual runaway. So when they placed her with us, they said, wasn't going to last more than a week or two before she was going to be gone. They found her in Georgia. So
wow.
We took her in, and we really prayed about it, and we really felt that this was going to be a good fit. And she stayed there over a year. She ended up aging out of the system. She got her grades up to where they needed to be, and then we were able to successfully get her into Forward Paths. So when she aged out of the system, we were able to use another organization in our community. So she successfully completed the program. Another thing that's really cool about our shelter is that we're able to get large sibling groups together. So when children are being moved all around, they're being separated from their siblings. The family that I was telling you about who've been there for 5 years is part of a large sibling group. And they came to us, and it was pretty bad. We had to hire a handyman pretty much just for the damage that these kids were doing in our home. But we never gave up. We kept on going. We kept trying different services and different things. We've got, one of the kids, she's 17. We just got her into a traditional foster home because she had a baby. So we were able to keep her during the pregnancy and make sure she was healthy, get her to all her appointments. And then we found a family in our church that took her in. And now she's over there, so she's right there near us. And her siblings are there. They've gone from grades in the 20s to AB honor roll students. They've, managed their behaviors. They're learning the coping skills, and they've been able to stay together regardless of their trauma, regardless of their past, which was really, really cool.
So I'm going to ask this again. What exactly is the program, right? I mean, is it regimented? Is there a schedule of events? Do these children go to school? They do. And in the public school system, or are you teaching them? So what, if someone were to utilize your services, what can they expect? Because it sounds like you do so much. There's got to be some kind of organization to it. It's hard to have an organization and structure when we're dealing with kids with trauma. But basically what we do, to wrap it down, is what would I want my child? What care would I want for my child if they were placed into my facility? So we're standing in the gap for the parents that have their issues that they're trying to work out right now, and we're going to do everything as if these are our own children. We enroll them in school. I go to all their school meetings, and I'm their advocate at school. I'm their advocate at court. We take them to all their doctor's appointments. A lot of kids come to us on psychotropic medication. So what we do is we try to get them more of counseling instead. We get them the med management, but we get them the counseling to actually work on their problems rather than just have to medicate their problems. We have activities. We have daily activities we try to do to keep these kids to have what's known as a normal life. We don't want them just sitting around in a shelter. We want them out there playing ball. Right. We want them getting tutoring. We want to take them to the water parks. We were blessed to be able to take them all to Universal Studios last year and Legoland last year. So exactly what we would do in our own family is what we do in our program. So now, painting that image, this is not Oliver Twist Orphanage.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
This is... it's not a place where children get, for lack of a better term, dumped off.
No, not at all. That's the kind of image that when we think of group homes and we think of group care,
A lot
that's
of times that's the first thing that comes to mind.
But it's not. And what we're doing now is we're creating more of a home environment for these kids. So when we originally started, it was more of a shelter. It was an institutionalized kind of shelter. And we've completely are renovating the shelter to make it feel like a home for these kids, because when they feel more at home, they're more comfortable, their behaviors start to change. They take more pride in their living arrangements. They feel that sense of home. You know, this isn't an after-school program. This is where the kids live. This is their sanctity.
Yeah.
This is their safe house.
Yeah, and again, I think that speaks volumes in itself, right there. You know, can you describe for our audience your home? Not your home, the shelter.
Yeah. So
so that we know what you do. How are these children living
So
day to day?
you come in, first off, we are not a house parent model, which some group care
What does that
is.
mean?
So there's some group homes that are house parents where there's parents that actually live there. And they kind of rotate between two house parents. But ours is shift staff because we are an emergency shelter. So we can get kids at any time, and we're dealing with more severe behavioral issues.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that we're not going to try to create that family setting for them. So you know, we have a living room where we have movie nights, and we move the couches away, and we pop some popcorn, and you'll have 12 children laying on the carpet with their blankets, you know, having movie day like you would with your own cousins and your own kids. We have, you know, kids doing chores throughout the house. They get allowance, so we teach them the responsibility. We have to teach them the life skills because many of the kids are going to age out of the system, and they need to know how to take care of themselves.
And that's a serious reality.
Yes. We cook all the meals on site. We sit down and we eat with them as a family around the table. We do devotions together. We have family meetings. We talk just like a regular family would talk. We have groups that come in. We have a group of awesome volunteers that do birthday parties for the kids. So something that we kind of take for granted. You know, I had a girl, she was 16, and she said, this was the first time I've ever had a birthday party.
What?
So we get them the decorations they choose. We get them cake, ice cream, presents. We play games. We give each child a birthday on their actual birthday. They get their own little party. With the
That's
group of
great.
Yeah, really. That's
And again,
one of my-
it puts things into perspective.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've ever had a party.
yeah.
We take it for granted.
We have a game room for the kids. We have pretty much every video game system out there, from Xbox One to Nintendo Switch, just because even though it's very materialistic, that's what the kids are talking about in school, and we want to give them the most normal life we can. So we want them to be able to fit in at school. You know, we do a bunch of activities. There's a boys' hallway and a girls' hallway, even though they are a lot of sibling groups. We have to separate them because it is a shelter.
Sure, of course.
But that's basically, again, it's just the same as if it's your home, just a lot more kids.
Now, if you brought up volunteers, do you rely heavily on volunteers? I assume you welcome anyone who is interested in helping.
Yes, we definitely rely on volunteers. Again, we're trying to create a family. They know that our staff and myself are paid. They know what's going on. They know the system.
Sure.
But these volunteers are people who come just because they love the kids, where these kids have never felt what real love is. You know, these kids will misbehave, but the volunteers keep on coming back. And we're trying, again, to create that family where, you know, you would see your cousins and your uncles and your aunts and your grandparents, and that's exactly what happens. They come and they make cookies with the kids. You know, they do crafts. They take them to the movies. We have volunteers that go to the children's award ceremonies, because if we have 12 kids all graduating on the same day, you know, we can't be at everywhere at once. So we have
Right.
volunteers that step in the gap, and they'll go there, help us take the kids places, read with the kids. Everything that your family would help you do raising your children,
Yeah.
we have our volunteers. So they're the heart and meat of our ministry.
So if someone was interested in getting information, or they're hearing this for the first time, and they may have someone in mind that can, you know, benefit from some of your services, where can they get that information?
Definitely through our website, www.fbchomes.org. So it's F as in Frank, B as in boy, C as in Charlie, homes.org. And they can just browse around at all the different ministries, all the different opportunities, if not just at our shelter, at any of the branches of One More Child in Florida Baptist Children's Homes.
Right. Now, we're specifically speaking on your shelter, but this is a large outreach organization here. So,
Correct.
Jamie,
Yeah.
thank you for taking the time out of your day. And it really sounds to me like what you're doing is, extremely important. And I hope we help get this information out there.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. And that wraps it up for Radio Waves today. I've been your host, Kris Poliquin. We'll see you next time.